Hi, good evening and welcome back to today's daily newspaper analysis. Let's start. And at the top of the news are the elections that were conducted yesterday. First, for the state of Kerala and Assam, and second, for the Union Territory of Puducherry. So the results have not been announced yet, but these were essentially assembly elections. So in these elections, voters were voting to elect members of the Legislative Assembly. As you all know, Puducherry is one of those union territories which has a Vidhan Sabha. Right now, remember, there are only 3 union territories which have Vidhan Sabhas or legislative assembly. What are the 3? Number 1, Puducherry. Number 2, Jammu and Kashmir. And number 3, the National Capital Territory of Delhi, right? So these are the 3 union territories which have Vidhan Sabhas or state legislative assemblies. Okay, so please keep that in mind. We'll of course know more about all of these once the results are out. We will have to know the chief ministers who are elected for all of the 3. Of course, elections are also pending for the state of West Bengal. Let's move forward. The second piece of news is about the CAPF law. First, you have to know the full form of CAPF. So CAPF stands for Central Armed Police Forces. Okay, Central Armed Police Forces. There are 5 armed forces of the Union which are characterized as Central Armed Police Force. So which are the 5 which fall under this bracket? We have the CRPF, the Central Reserve Police Force. We have the BSF, the Border Security Force. Then we have the ITBP, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Then we have the SSB, the Sashastra Seema Bal. And finally, we have the CISF, the Central Industrial Security Force. So all of these 5 are called together Central Armed Police Force. Now, recently, Parliament passed this law. What did it do? This particular law reserves a certain portion of ranks, especially senior ranks, for IPS officers. Okay. Now, remember, for all of these forces, there is direct recruitment into ranks of these services. Okay. On the other hand, Indian police service officers are also deputed to certain ranks, especially senior ranks of the Central Armed Police Forces. Now, what this new law has done has clearly set a certain percentage among the senior ranks, which will be reserved for Indian police service officers. This has, of course, caused huge consternation among the servicemen who were from these particular. Okay, so that is what this piece of news is about. You have to, of course, know the full forms of all of these Central Armed Police Forces. Moving forward, the news story tells us that the Iran ceasefire teeters over disputes on Lebanon, Hormuz, ahead of Pak talks. So what are the things which we have to know about here? As you all know, the US and Iran entered into a ceasefire, which was mediated by Pakistan. As per this ceasefire, it's a 2-week ceasefire, so 14-day ceasefire. And during this period, a condition is that, of course, neither side will attack each other and that Iran will allow ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Now, according to the PM of Pakistan, who was the mediator essentially, the ceasefire extends to the Israeli forces attacking Lebanon as well. The state of Israel disagrees. Okay. So the state of Israel has announced that this ceasefire does not extend to Lebanon, whereas this was a key component of the ceasefire according to Iran. Okay, so that's why this headline suggests that the ceasefire teeters as in it's tumbling. We are not sure if the ceasefire will be durable, if it will last, and if the parties will be able to come to a common agreement. Okay, so this is important. We are going to continue to track the developments in this war and in this ceasefire. A piece of news about India's first quantum reference facility. Okay, now what are quantum reference facilities? Other words associated with this are quantum computing testing beds. Okay, so a facility which has quantum computing testing beds is also referred to as a quantum reference facility, and this is going to be inaugurated in Andhra Pradesh. Remember, this year, this is not the first time we are hearing of something to do with quantum computing and the state of Andhra Pradesh. Earlier in this year, it's been announced that the Amravati Quantum Valley will be established. Okay, we of course have to link this to the important government schemes as well. Okay, moving forward, this is an editorial by the Hindu titled Timely Inaction. Okay, so it is talking about the RBI or the Reserve Bank of India, and related to the RBI, there is this body known as the MPC or the Monetary Policy Committee. This is a body comprising of 6 members. It is a statutory body under the RBI Act of 1934. Who is the chair of this body? It is the governor of the RBI, who currently is Mr. Sanjay Malhotra. So the Monetary Policy Committee decides primarily the monetary policy of the country, and they hold meetings once every 2 months. Now, in the latest meeting, which took place just a couple of days back, it was decided that the policy rate, now when we say policy rate, what do we mean? Policy rate refers to the repo rate or the repurchase rate. That is the main lever or the main tool of monetary policy, which is controlled by the RBI and the Monetary Policy Committee. Okay. Now, due to external circumstances, due to the war, due to the possibility of inflation, the Monetary Policy Committee has decided to keep the policy rate the same. That is to say, they have decided not to increase it, nor have they decided to reduce it in order to ensure a stable monetary policy. Okay, so please keep this in mind. That will be important. Okay, remember, you don't have to know the exact rate. Okay, all you have to know is the stance taken by the Monetary Policy Committee. In this case, they have kept it unchanged. The second thing to keep in mind is these meetings will happen once every 2 months. So the final decision, we'll keep a track of it just before the Clat exam. Okay, so that's why the Hindu says timely inaction, because the Monetary Policy Committee decided not to change the policy rate. Okay, moving forward, I just wanted to flag this one to talk to you about this word plutocratic. Okay, so the title of this article is Have India's Elections Become Plutocratic? Okay, so I just flagged this editorial for you so that you know the meaning of this phrase. Okay, a plutocratic system is one where the wealthiest people control the course of politics and control the course of a nation. Okay, so if we call somebody a plutocrat, we are saying that this is a person, one of the wealthy people of a particular country, who exercises a lot of influence and control over the governance of a nation. Okay, and this article is essentially about the use of money in elections. And hence the question asked is, have elections in India turned plutocratic. Okay. Moving forward, this is a little bit about the Jan Vishwas Acts. Okay. Now, the government from time to time through parliament has been passing these Jan Vishwas Acts, and the purpose of these acts is to decriminalize certain offenses. Okay. So what these acts essentially do is to say that certain kinds of offenses will no longer be considered criminal in nature. Rather, there will be an opportunity provided simply to pay a fine or to settle the dispute. That is essentially the trend which the Jan Vishwas Acts follow. It is a trend of decriminalization. The government has often linked it to the ease of doing business as well, saying that minor lapses of compliance should not be turned criminal in nature. Okay, so if you see this word Jan Vishwas Acts, you know that they are talking about reducing the compliance burden and decriminalizing certain offenses. Okay, moving forward, there is a mention of Gaganyaan, and this is, of course, we can link this to the Artemis 2 mission as well. Later today, at some point in time, the astronauts on board Artemis 2 are going to land back on Earth. Okay, so there's an article written here about Gaganyaan, which is India's human spaceflight program. We have, of course, we are, of course, working on this. There are several stages of the same. But remember, Gaganyaan is the name of India's human spaceflight program. Moving, so we've covered this already. Government has notified the CAPF law. The official name of the law is the Central Armed Police Forces General Administration Act 2026. As I was telling you earlier, what this act does is that in all of these 5 forces, it ensures that 50% of the inspectors general, 67% of the additional director general, and all the posts of special director general and director general will be filled by Indian police service officers rather than officers of CRPF or BSF or ITBP or SSB or CIS. Okay, so this is, of course, seen as highly unfair by those who were recruited directly into these Central Armed Police Forces. Moving forward, I wanted to flag this article for you because of IAEA. Okay, so what is the IAEA? It is the International Atomic Energy Agency, and right now it is chaired by Rafael Grossi. Okay, his name is Rafael Grossi. He is the person who heads the International Atomic Energy Agency right now. And he has, of course, made statements that he is worried for humanity because of the attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities and the damage they could do to the people in Iran and the rest of the world and the environment and planet Earth as a whole. Okay, if you remember, under the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which had initially been signed between US and Iran and the other P5+1 nations, it was the IAEA's job to conduct regular inspections to make sure that Iran was following the nuclear deal. Right? Of course, I don't think I need to remind you that Iran, in fact, was following that deal till Trump withdrew the United States from the JCPOA, bringing us to the situation we are in today. Moving forward, once again, the Hindu talks about how the US-Iran truce is on shaky ground, primarily because Israel says that Lebanon is not included, and Iran saying that Lebanon has to be included. Okay, so which is why this truce, this ceasefire, this 14-day cessation of hostilities is on shaky ground. Okay, once again, Israel has continued to strike Lebanon. In fact, one of the deadliest days in its campaign against Lebanon. occurred after the ceasefire was announced. In fact, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, even made statements to the effect that the US has entered into a ceasefire and we as an ally are simply supporting. Okay. Moving forward, Trump, of course, is maintaining a belligerent stance. Iran has not yet allowed full opening of the Strait of Hormuz back to its pre-war levels, primarily because it says that the ceasefire has not been enforced in Lebanon, right? And Trump continues to say that the military will stay deployed in that region till Iran reaches a final agreement with the United States. Okay. Moving forward, as I mentioned, the Artemis 2 astronauts are set to land back on Earth with a fireball re-entry. Why do they call it a fireball re-entry? Humans will be landing back on Earth for the first time at the highest speed till date. Right, the last successful landings have been at speeds lower than what will be traveled by the Artemis 2 astronauts. Finally, we'll end with this editorial by Shyam Saran. He says that a post-Iran war West Asia order can open a strategic space for India. And he, of course, talks about the impact that Pakistan's brokering of this ceasefire will have. So it's an interesting article. You should absolutely have a look at it. This is in today's Indian Express. The Indian Express's editorial board expressing the view that it is Trump's role to rein in Netanyahu, or the PM of the state of Israel, to ensure that the ceasefire is actually stuck. Let me be frank, right now it is unclear if this ceasefire will hold, primarily because the state of Israel is continuing its campaign against Lebanon. There's also a news story today about further steps which are taking place in the quest for India's first bullet train between Ahmedabad and Mumbai. Finally, what is India's stance on the entire, ceasefire? India, of course, welcomes it, but India makes clear that we stand for free and safe navigation over the seas. As you all know, as part of the post-war plans, Iran suggests that it is going to charge tolls on those ships which cross the Strait of Hormuz. So India does not support that. In fact, India is in support of free and safe navigation. Finally, an interesting article in today's Indian Express as part of the explained section, which talks about Puducherry's speciality as a union territory. What is the special status that Puducherry has as a union territory? I won't reveal it for you. I suggest that you log into the Roznama and try the questions on it. This is part of the legal passage in today's comprehensive questions. Okay, so you can go to clatpossible.com, click free material, log in with your regular account. If you haven't signed up yet, you can sign up and access it for free. So do sign in, do those questions every day. We've started calling it the mini Clat, which you can do each and every day. Okay, so that's all for today. As always, thank you for being here for this session. And I'm looking forward to meeting you all over the coming days. Good evening and good night.